Anyway, I've got the new copy. James, did you think about bringing that notebook?
Yeah, I've already put them in the boardroom. I brought you two books that Cindy gave me, and also, well, I'll show it to you.
We want to welcome you to Rotary, and we're glad you could be here. Welcome to those that are joining us on Zoom. We thought we were going to have to improvise there for a second, but our broken bell has arrived. Thanks to our district governor. Mr. Lester, would you come and lead us, please?
I'll be happy to. We do not have the piano today, so I'm going to depend upon all these blended voices. And by the way, on the pledge, it was brought to my attention that in the pledge, sometimes we hyphenate the pledge. One nation under God, that's all one sentence. One nation under God, indivisible. So don't hyphenate it. There's not supposed to be a comma there, okay? You know, once a teacher, you're always a teacher, right? Here we go.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Now let's do our
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Alan, would you come offer a prayer?
Thank you, President Shield. Pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this club, a club which believes in service above self. As we meet here today, between Memorial Day, Father's Day, and Independence Day, may we reflect on those who came before us with vision, discipline, and perseverance to make this country the way of life we enjoy what it is now. Please bless this meal to strengthen us so we may preserve what we have been given. We ask for this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Rosemary is going to give our family a Rotary today. Thank you, Rosemary.
Hopefully I can read it. I didn't bring the glasses, but happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. We only have one birthday. It's a very special person, Lester Stewart, June 25th. Happy birthday.
Thank you. 93, not
Wow, and you look great. Anniversaries, Greg Hendricks and Linda on June 21st, Todd Derrick and Bobby on June 26th. And the reason why I'm standing up here today is because Terry Duffy is in Birmingham having surgery, but he'll be there on July the 6th. Mr. Angelo is at home now, and Cynthia Green's father passed away. Let's please keep all of them in our prayers.
Thank you, Rosemary. Last meeting, Mr. Angeloff had an episode and he collapsed at the end of the meeting and wound up going to the ER, and they processed him. In the process of evaluating what was going on, they realized that he had a mild heart attack, but then they discovered that he also has bone cancer. So he spent some time in the hospital, but he is home now and they're putting together a treatment plan. You would keep him in your prayers for sure and reach out to him. I know he seems to be in good spirits, but I know he appreciates hearing from his fellow Rotarians. Mark?
Good afternoon, everybody. We're happy to welcome our guests and visiting Rotarians today. It's going to be a long list, so when I call your name, would you please stand and remain standing until all visitors are recognized. Coleman Cannon, guest of Marcus Cannon. Thank y'all for coming. Any other visitors that are here that I've missed so far? All right, and thank you to Mr. Hoover for thank you to him as well for being here. Thank y'all for visiting us. It doesn't really mean that.
Thank you, Mark. I was looking and thinking, I really don't see any visitors. So you guys. Okay, Robbie, are you ready? All right.
Got 135.
135. The last four, 8450.
It don't matter. He draws in.
What happens when you buy lunch?
We need an audit. He gets drawn too many times. Drawn too many times.
Ooh.
Three of hearts. Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah, did you get all your company on the road?
Dill, would you like to come up? Your announcement.
I just want to thank our Dothan Rotary Club for hosting my district governor induction this past Friday night. And I want to start off by thanking our Dothan Rotarians that were there. And thank you to all of you that sent messages of goodwill, good fortune. But Sheila and Mike, thank you for being there and being a big part of it. Leslie and Susan Bloomberg. Leslie, tell Susan big thank you. She had a big part in it. Rufus and Carmi Davis. Terry Duffy was there and he was dressed to the night. He sparkled, he looked great. He was really great to see him. James and Alicia Etheridge, thank y'all for being there. Arthur and Tina, thank you for being there. Greg Gregory was there. Greg Hendricks and Linda, thank you. Jenny, Logan, and Kim that works with Jenny. Please stand up, Jenny. They decorated all the tables. They did a fantastic job and checked people in. Thank you so much. Olivia McDaniels was there. Bruce, Angela. Bruce was there helping set up early. Was there afterwards helping take down late. Thank you. Thank you. Alan Richards, thank you for being there. Bob and Pam Rutter, thank you for being there. Willis and Lana Smitherman. Cal Whaley played the piano, and he is fantastic. We are so very fortunate to have him, one of our Dothan Rotarians. And Jim and Joy, thank y'all for being there. On our district leadership team this year, we have several Dothan Rotarians that will be on the district leadership team. Bruce will continue. James Etheridge will continue. Sheila and Mike will continue will be part of the district leadership team this year. And Josh Chapman will be on there. Cynthia Green is going to be the district secretary. And then Adam Williams is going to be the Rotaract chair. And Adam did a great job. He did the final prayer for the benediction and did a really good job with that. But I start my term on July the 1st. So Bruce hands over to me, but I'll start my club visits on July the 11th. The first week, that weekend of July the 11th, I will start in the Mobile area and we'll go to 8, 8 Rotary clubs from Monday to Friday of that week. You gotta remember, some start at 7, sunrise clubs. Some start at 5:30, they're sunset clubs, and then some are noon clubs like us. But the schedule is set up from July the 11th through October the 26th. So every week between that timeline, I will try to visit all 48 Rotary clubs. So starting after July the 11th, I will be able to be here at our Monday Rotary clubs where I get to come and just sit and enjoy. I'll be up talking. So, but I want to thank all of you members for supporting me, and let's have a great year as we imagine Rotary for our 22-23 year. Thank you.
Thank you, and it was a very special night. It was a beautiful induction ceremony, good food, and we had some pictures, but unfortunately our TV system is down today, so maybe we can share some of those next week with you. It was a great night. All right, Walter and Colton, if you could come forward.
Okay. It is my pleasure to introduce our newest Dothan Rotarian today. Many of you already know, but I'm going to give some background on Colton. Colton Curitan is a Dothan native, graduate of Troy University with his bachelor's degree, and also received a master's of public administration from Troy, as well as a doctorate degree from Liberty University in educational leadership. So not only is our median age going down today, our intelligence is going up, so that's great. Over the past 5 years, Colton has worked in the field of workforce and economic development by spending time at the Mobile Area Chamber of Commerce, Houston County Career Academy, and he is now a part of the team at the Dothan Area Chamber of Commerce. And as a chamber board member, I can tell you he's doing a great job already. In his role there, he works to support existing industrial and retail companies in the total retail or the regional market for the Dothan area, as well as works to help recruit new industrial and retail companies to our region. Colton and his wife, Catherine, are proud parents of a daughter, Charlotte Rose, who was born just a few weeks ago. And for Father's Day, she stayed up most of last night. And so that was his first Father's Day present from Charlotte Rose. But I'm pleased to present him with his plaque and his badge, and I'll turn it now over to Sheila.
Thank you, Walter. Colton, we're excited to have you join us. We look forward to you being part of our club. There will be duties and responsibilities that will be assigned, especially during the first couple of years, part of the new member committee. But also, as I think you know, being a member in Dothan Rotary Club entitles you to join in with Rotary International and be a part of Rotary as a whole. We welcome you. Like I said, and we just look forward to having you as part of the club. And I got to spend a little time with you the other day at the induction and learned that Dothan is home for you, and that you really, you and your wife both made an effort to come back to Dothan. So that's important. And so welcome again.
Thank you.
Welcome, Colton. Bruce.
Mr. Etheridge, if you'd step forward. You know, Dothan Rotarians historically are movers and shakers in our community and throughout the state and region. And James Etheridge is no doubt one of those movers and shakers too. Rotarians do a lot for the community. They do a lot for the Rotary Club. And a lot of times the average Rotarian has no clue what somebody else is doing within the community. But I don't take the time to go into all the detail, but James Etheridge is a mover and a shaker in the Dothan community. He is involved in a lot, and the community appreciates it. But I truly appreciate James serving again, second year, as an assistant governor for our district. And I do have a plaque. This is assistant Governor Award, Area 8, District 6880, and this is for the 21-20 year. James Etheridge is hereby honored for your service and devotion to our district. And this is from Bruce McNeil, District Governor. Thank you, James.
Walter, would you come back up, please? I have a couple of things that I wanted to present, and Walter has served this club for many years. He was president. He's now our social media king. He keeps us informed. So you were nominated and received the district award for social media this year for the district. So we appreciate what you do. Walter posts every week about
Almost every week.
he might miss one a year, but who our speaker is going to be, if we're meeting or not meeting, if COVID has happened again and we need to wear a mask, or if we're not meeting because of that. I mean, he does keep us informed, and he does an excellent job, and we appreciate you. And the district recognizes it also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think I'm probably going to really embarrass this next person, but she does a great job. She is a servant. She works behind the scenes and doesn't get recognized very much. But for our Rotarian of the Year, Jeannie Logan, would you come forward, please? So Jeannie serves as our board secretary, but she does a lot of little things that, you know, people probably just don't notice. I remember the time that this past year when we got the notice that because of COVID, we'd kind of gotten out of the habit of wearing masks, and we were just getting started back meeting, but we got the notice that we need to wear the mask when we come in, and if we're not eating or presenting, have your mask on. And so we sent that word out, but that Monday, she showed up with a box of masks, just in case somebody needed one. And she's always been there with a good attitude, with a smile. She helped Friday night with Dale. She also does a great job with our minutes and trying to keep me straight, which I'm sure has been a big challenge this year. But I also remember the time that I got started on something up here and I realized I needed some help, and the words came out of my mouth before I saw Jenny, but when I did see Jenny and asked her to come forward, she had just taken a big bite, but she immediately jumped up and came up and helped me with what I needed. She does a lot behind the scenes, so it's my honor to present you as our Rotarian of the Year for Dothan Rotary. Thank you. So with no further ado, Judge Conway.
Thank you, Madam President. When Josh called me and told me I had the program, I had two concerns. One, what kind of program would you like to listen to? And the other was how I was going to navigate the steps up to the podium. It seems to be more difficult as time goes on. Today in America, 1 in 44 children are born with a condition that affects all areas of social interaction with other people. And that's the autism spectrum. Everybody in this room has an immediate or extended family member with this disorder, and it's affecting all of our society. So today, I asked to speak to us a gentleman who's well versed in this subject. He's also been a great servant of the people of the state of Alabama. Cam Ward, I can say a lot of things for him. I'll just go through some highlights. He's a graduate of Troy and currently serves on the board of trustees of that university. He graduated from Cumberland. And he began practice as a lawyer and has served previously as a deputy attorney general and counsel for the Alabama State Auditor's Office. He's worked as assistant secretary of state. He served in the House of Representatives and the Senate of the state of Alabama. He's been recognized nationally for his legislative work on governmental reforms and for his courage in working with bills to enhance funding for autism. He has a wife named Lindsay, who he, in his CV, is the last line. I'm gonna talk to Lindsay about that. He needs to go to the front. 2 girls, Riley and Clemens, and a son, Robert. He is a champion for the autistic in their struggle to learn and be accepted by all. It's my privilege and great honor to introduce my friend, the Honorable Kevin Boyd.
Well, it's kind of interesting because in my new role as Director of Bureau of Pardon and Parole, when the judge called me and said, I want you to come talk about something interesting, I said, well, it's not going to be pardon and parole. So surely you want more than that for lunch. No, he did ask me to come talk a little bit about autism. And I know this well because we discovered that my daughter, who is now 19, almost 20 years old next month, it was on the autism spectrum. We discovered it when she was 3. And so there's a lot of, I was actually in the State House of Representatives at the time. And there's several points I want to hit on today to talk about that. One, just as a caveat, you guys are going to be blessed to know this. Paul Lee, my friend in the House, you won't believe this, Paul, but I really do not like giving long talks. So if you have any questions, please start preparing them because this will not be a long speech. I'm going to give you some highlights of what I saw in the political process with the autism issue, where we were, where we are today. So literally in 2000, late in 2002, 2004, my daughter gets diagnosed with autism. And at the time, probably like many people in this room, that was not well, you didn't talk about that much 20 years ago. It just wasn't something you talked about. I'm 51, and I remember being a kid. I remember a kid, there were certain other kids in school with me, and you just always said something was wrong with it. You know, something was off. But back then, you just didn't, autism was not part of the conversation. Of course, that changed and burst onto the scene with the movie Rain Man. And since that time, a lot of people still in their mind, unless you dealt with someone, a loved one, or a friend on the autism spectrum, Rain Man is kind of what always jumps out at you. And what we've learned over the years is it's much more complex than that. So let me walk through my journey with it and kind of go through what I see as some issues. Well, at the time we found out she was on the autism spectrum, the first thing that happens to a family when their child is on the spectrum is there's denial. And I'm sure there's a sociology experiment on this. 9 times out of 10, it's the father who has the most denial, not the mother. Mothers tend to be more nurturing and therefore much more accepting of doing whatever it takes to help the child. Fathers tend to be more, not my child, not my child, not my child. That also leads to other problems in that 60% of couples that have a child in the autism spectrum usually end up divorced. It creates a lot of family tensions that you wouldn't normally expect. We found out, and then of course, the first thing the doctor told us was you need to do a massive amount of speech and occupational therapy to help them learn the skills. Because oftentimes people on the spectrum, they're nonverbal, they don't talk. And I'll get to the whole spectrum issue in a minute, but when we had Riley, first thing we did was we went to get these services at Children's Hospital in Birmingham, because at the time we lived in Alabaster. And I will tell you this, we were lucky because we had money to do it. Bet you 75% of the people in Alabama would not have that same luxury because it's not cheap. But that early intervention services of speech and occupational therapy for 3 to 4 long years really changed everything for us with Riley. So then I came into my own in the legislature. I was 30 years old when I was elected, so I was really green and looking at things in a different light. And I wanted to see if we could take state action. What kind of state things can I do in my position to change this debate or improve the lives of those on the autism spectrum? At the time when my child was diagnosed, that number was one in every 180. What has happened over the years is medical professions have gotten so much better at diagnosing it that before the person who we used to think was kind of weird or kind of off, we now recognize that was someone on the autism spectrum. So diagnosis has gotten better. That's why you see that now 1 in 44. 2004, I'll never forget, she was diagnosed. 2005, at the time it was then Governor Riley, and I went to him about it. And this is typical then, because in state government, you just never talked about autism. That was never an issue. Cancer, we talked about. Issues like that were common, terminologies. You just didn't talk about autism. Nobody did in politics back then. Went to Governor Riley and he said, so let me ask you this. How do you fix it? What do you do to fix it? And that's typical for all of us in politics. You come to me with a problem. What do I got to do to fix it? You elect me to fix it. And you really can't fix autism. Autism is a lifelong disorder. It's with you forever. It's how do you deal with it and provide services with for those on the spectrum. And a lot of times people will say, well, how do you cure it? And it's not a cure. It just doesn't work that way. Unlike cancer even, or certain other ailments, there's not a cure. It's how do I make this person live a truly independent, strong life? What kind of services can we provide? And there are national groups out there, CDC, other federal groups, federal government funded groups that actually do research into autism, what are its origins, which is a huge debate. What do you do to help change the trajectory of someone's life who's on the autism spectrum? State government, you can't do that. We don't have that kind of money. It's billions in research on autism from the federal side. State government is built a little different because we have to run balanced budgets. So what do? You focus your efforts on the things that provide services for those already on the spectrum. First bill we passed, 2006, 2007, created an autism council, which just basically took all the parties around state government that were involved in providing services, brought them to the table 6 or 7 times a year to come up with new best practices that we were learning from other states. 2 other bills later, in which we provided more services for the autism spectrum, the debate finally became mainstream. You started hearing more and more people talk about it. We started having parents come down to Montgomery and talk about the autism spectrum and their love of being on the spectrum. The debate really peaked in 2018, I guess it was when we passed this, when we started talking about the debate on insurance. So insurance is one of those funny issues because Alabama was traditionally one where you could not get insurance for your loved one who was on the autism spectrum. If you want to go get speech, occupational therapy, you basically had to put thousands of dollars out of your own pocket to treat those on the spectrum. You had a loved one. And like I said, there's a lot of people in Alabama or poor state couldn't afford that. So we really took the battle out and fought for insurance reform to say there has to be some level of providing insurance for those on the spectrum. And now you want to talk about getting out into the nasty weeds, and Paul, I know you dealt with this in your role in the health committee in Montgomery, but you really want to talk about getting some fights. Friendships were broken up over this particular fight because there was a large segment of the business community who I have so many dear friends in who were big supporters of mine who just dug in. They said, no, what you're doing is you're mandating insurance coverage. There should not be a mandate, let the market drive it. Well, unfortunately, in this state, we just don't. We just had a lot of people who didn't want to have to pay for it, is what it was. And we fought pretty hard in the legislature, and it got pretty ugly. When I say ugly, I mean to the point where there were longtime friends of mine who were lobbyists or representatives of the business community. We didn't talk for like a year after this was over. We did finally pass it. And the reason we passed that insurance reform measure, first of all, former state representative Jim Patterson, North Alabama, the tragedy died right after all he got it passed, was a true advocate. And he didn't care. He went against the wall and just hit it hard to pass a way to provide these people with insurance coverage. But second, I saw many of my well-paid lobbyist friends lobbying against it, but I saw many parents who drove to Montgomery. And every once in a while, you'll see this. You've seen some of it, Paul, or what happens is you got a well-entrenched group that says this bill will never pass on my dead body. And then out of nowhere, and it does make you feel good about our government a little bit, when you see a group of parents come in, and these parents flooded the state house. And this was mama, daddy, grandma, grandpa, uncles, and aunts who said, my child is on the spectrum. Tell me why you're picking this company, this money over my child's well-being. And at the end of the day, there was no stopping that. Those parents won. They beat it. And again, it was a hard battle because there were friends on both sides, but it goes into law. And so now there is a level of certain insurance coverage for those on the spectrum. But you say, well, we hear about the political battles, but talk to me about the spectrum. See, it's a spectrum disorder. That means you could have someone over here that you would never know in a million years they have autism. You might notice they have some strange tics, but you never know it's they have a developmental disability in the brain. Then you have the full-blown, non-communicating, non-verbal, could not sit here in this room without rocking tremendously, lack of eye contact, non-verbal. That's full-blown, the far end of the autism spectrum. Y'all heard of Asperger's? That is also in the autism spectrum. It's a developmental disability. No one knows what causes it. Now, you'll hear a lot of theories out there. No one knows, but science is evolving so that we know more today than we've ever known before. And that's a good thing. And I think you'll continue to see that change. Let me tell you from my personal experience. My child had, said, 3.5, 4 years of intensive early intervention to help her speak. Originally, she couldn't speak. So guess what? I learned sign language. I knew this meant more. She had to learn sign language first. They taught her how to speak. Just this past week, I was down seeing her. She's at college at the University of Central Florida, Orlando. She finished her freshman year. She made all A's. It works. People who are on the autism spectrum, they're not going to be cured or fixed, but they can get the services they need if we provide them so that they can succeed in life. And I don't know about you, but I think all of us want that. I mean, we want every member of our community to be a productive member of the community and one that can live an independent life. And that was the beauty of my daughter, my 19, soon to be 20-year-old daughter. And that was something that we were so proud of. This is a debate that will continue going. However, now it's much more part of the mainstream economy than it used to be. People talk about it now and you go, I know, because what you hear more and more is, Judge, you hear people say, I've got a nephew, I've got a grandson, I got a granddaughter, I've got a cousin. Interesting fact, just so you know this, 75% of those in the autism spectrum are actually boys. 25% are female. No one really knows why. People, this is one of the hardest things that parents go through when it comes to autism. In addition to the fight for services, they really want to know, well, why me? Why did this happen to my son? Why did this happen to Johnny? And there's not an answer, and that's frustrating for parents. It creates depression. It creates, as I mentioned before, marital strife. And there's not an answer. There's not an easy solution to that. But the statistics show like 75% of those in spectrum are boys. Now, there are different theories as to why people get autism, as I told you earlier. You will hear vaccines cause it. And don't get me wrong, I think too many vaccines at a young age can be a problem. There's absolutely no evidence that vaccine causes autism. There are those who argue, and this is probably a little more likely, that it's a combination of environmental effects as well as genetics, that there may be a genetic predisposition to someone more likely to have autism than not. We don't know that yet. There are people out there who are scientists a heck of a lot smarter than me, who will probably one day come up with what causes it, no different than what causes certain kinds of cancer. It's just a matter of time. But now that we have that awareness in our governments and we're having that awareness in our political debates, I think it makes it a whole lot more likely you'll see people getting those kind of services. So that being said, what kind of questions y'all have for me? I told y'all.
Is there any statistics of how much services now are provided that was not provided prior to the bill?
Yeah, there's a lot more. You're getting a lot more insurance. So you have certain defined benefit groups that do not have to. Well, overall, you're seeing a huge uptick in those who are getting that insurance coverage, getting a certain amount of physical and occupational therapy, but also we required Medicaid to do as well. So that really tackled the problem that I mentioned earlier. For those who are in poverty, couldn't afford it. I don't have an exact statistic, but I can tell you that Medicaid coverage helps as much as anything else. Other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm thinking of the acceptance of it. I've taught for nearly 50 years. I've seen this happen in families, the denial. This is not my child, this denial. There's nothing wrong with my child, simply because they did not understand what they were dealing with. This was in the early life of the child. So we'll send them to school, and school will straighten it all out. Of course, we knew that didn't happen. We did introduce special education, which helped some with that. Not so much in treating the child, but how to deal with it when the child's on campus. So I can understand where parents, in some cases, may be in denial too. This really has not happened. There's nothing wrong with this child. It just got a little problem.
I was the first on my side that way.
Yeah.
Well, mother's overreacting, mother's overreacting.
Well, of course, they're more tenderhearted sometimes.
Mother's overreacting, and so you worry, and you think, well, maybe something is there. But then, as you go through it, eventually there is an acceptance. And then also, when you deal with the public school system, you're lost because, now all of a sudden I'm entitled to certain benefits, certain services that I normally would be entitled to. But 9 times out of 10, I ran into so many parents later who didn't know they were entitled to certain things. Those of you in education know what an IEP is, individualized education plan, which means it's because my child was diagnosed with a disability, I was entitled to certain services. First couple of years she was in school, I didn't know. I had no idea. I was an attorney, surely I would know. I didn't know. And so the number of parents who call me today still call me and say, I got a loved one with autism. Will you please, well, what can I do? And I immediately go, you got to go check this resource. You're entitled to certain rights and benefits. And they just don't know. So it's a big education process.
Senator Ward, you talked about what has been done for 2018 insurance legislation. What needs to be done going forward that hasn't been done?
Oh, I tell you what the biggest issue is in state government, hands down. One, making sure that we provide more funding for special education services in the schools. Like you said, a lot of times, and this is not fair to the public school system, but it happens, I've seen it, where parents view, I drop you off at 7:30, I don't see you again till 3:30, you're their problem, not mine. And that's a terrible way to look at schools, but it's true. I know a lot of parents who do that, but a lot of times schools, particularly in rural areas, are not equipped with the tools and resources they need to provide those services. I'd say there's one thing that'd be it right there, that and educating parents and the public as to what autism actually means. What does it mean? What a lot of people don't realize, there's, again, going back to the stigma of the Rain Man syndrome. Most people don't realize that a lot of folks on the autism spectrum are very highly functional, they call it, and they can operate well in society. In fact, I have 2 people that work for me at Paroles who have autism, and they're great employees, super employees. Quirky, yeah, they're quirky, but they do a great job. One of them is an attorney for them. So they're good. They're oftentimes very smart. Intelligence level usually exceeds those around them if the social skills are lacking. But educating people as to the benefits of these services and why we can make people independent, productive, that's one of the biggest issues going forward. Yes, ma'am.
As a former special ed teacher from 1974, today we have such a shortage nationwide of certified special ed teachers. So that's a big problem right now too. People that can serve the children.
And great story there to let me lead into this was that my daughter, who's at UCF, she's majoring in special education.
Oh, wow.
So, just it tells you the journey we've come through with that. So, and you're right, you need, because teaching in general is not necessarily a low profession these days, particularly as we went through COVID and all that. Compound that being a special education teacher. Parents are mad with you because you're not doing enough. Parents are upset with you, and then you still have the hardest job in the school dealing with those who have the highest level of need. So yeah, you're right. We do need to do a better job.
But who would know better? Who would know better how to deal with it than someone who's experienced?
No, you wouldn't. That goes back to parents like myself and others that, hey, I know back when I was in the legislature, we still toured, go around schools in the district. I always went by the special education class. And a lot of my community service grants, Paul, I would always give them to help provide equipment for basically the special needs classrooms, things that we don't think about, sensory items, sensory equipment. And that was a big deal for me because I knew it. But if you didn't know it, that wasn't your area, you just kind of pay lip service and say, I'm sorry, I'm glad to help you, but I can't, but it's just not my area. Yes, sir.
Curious about in your current role, given your experience with this, how do you see the issue coming up in criminal reform and our jail?
Yeah, so I will tell you, whether it be, and there are those on the spectrum who go through the system. Oftentimes your arrest, you have a mistaken arrest for someone you believe to be somewhat intoxicated or somehow on drugs, when in fact they have a real developmental disability. It's a big issue. Mental health and the criminal justice issue is a whole big issue. I mean, really and truly, I see it all the time. There's some people who honestly did bad things, but they were headed that way because of the mental illness. One of the things I've started in my new role as director of pardon and parole is we roughly supervise about 44,000 people out now on parole. And we have so many mental illnesses that one of the biggest things I've done with my resources is really flooded into substance abuse and mental health treatment. Because if you can deal with someone's underlying mental health issue, the risk of their criminal activity, it goes down a lot. But I do see it a lot. It's throughout the criminal justice system. And it's because of a lack of understanding. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
In terms of support, like for you and your wife, as you kind of got the diagnosis of your daughter, what would you say you guys needed most?
One, information as to what benefits we're entitled to, which ones we were not. Two, the one other thing we needed most is the ability to pay for the therapy. Because if you don't have the ability to provide therapy, then the chances of them getting better drop dramatically. They just don't.
What about from an emotional standpoint? You talk about the
respite care. Respite care is very important because you're still a family unit. I mean, you know, the mother and father at some point they need a chance to spend time with each other. If your entire mental focus is on one, the grief, and two, the constant maintaining, you know, supervision of the child, what happens is the marriage breaks down because you're not spending time with each other, just like anything else we deal with. You need some form of respite care out there to give that family a break. A lot of churches do that today, and there are a lot of respite care providers. That's a big deal for the family unit. Did I cover it? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say thank you for speaking on this. I will say back in the day, I think one of the most humbling and rewarding things for me in high school, I went to Dothan, was we taught the last cheer squad, the Special Olympics, all that stuff. And I think there's just so many people that don't understand the spectrum and what it's like and how to deal with it. And then following through with that, I worked at Dothan Pediatrics and did referrals for autism, for speech and occupational physical therapy. So I think it's just a good thing that you're, you know, getting that information out. I think it's hard and a lot of people don't understand. So.
Well, thank you. My daughter's a success story because of speech and occupational therapy. I mean, it works. You know, I will tell you what gets tougher is when they get older. If you haven't had that therapy as adults, the therapy doesn't have nearly the impact of what the mind's developing at that young age. If you start therapy, say 20 years old or 22 years old, the impact it has is much less than it starts, say, at 3, 4, 5. Well, guys, listen, I appreciate y'all allowing me to be here today. It's great to be in Dothan again. And actually, it's great to be talking about something such as pardon and parole for once. So thank you all again for having me. It's great to have
you. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to make mention that I remember when this legislation was about to be passed, and I have a gorgeous great nephew who, the biggest, bluest eyes, the cutest little fellow, and he was diagnosed around that time. And I remember that his parents were very hopeful that this legislation would pass, and it has been a blessing to them to have that treatment for their son. And he's about 10 now. He's still a cute little fella, and he's come a long way, I think, because of the treatment that he's been able to receive. So thank you. Thank you. Also, today, you notice we don't have our cameras on, so they're down, and the 4-way test banner is not here. So this is a test. But But you're lucky because I have a cheat sheet. Let's stand and say our four-way test, and next week's program will be my farewell. I hope you can be here. Of what we think, say, and do.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it be with goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thanks, guys, for being here.